Hello, everyone, and welcome to this training session. This is going to be a Word, what call Reference Features Part 1, and we're going to look at tables of contents, captions, and cross-references. My name is Scott Kinsella. I am a Microsoft certified trainer and Microsoft Office Specialist Master. I know it's a long title, but basically I specialize in all of the Microsoft Office end-user products. I've been an MCT or a Microsoft certified trainer for about 10 years. Actually, it's more than that. I think we're up to 11 or something like that. So that's why it's over 10. But teaching wise, I've been working with these Office products for well over 23 years. I started way back with Office 4.3 back in the 90s, and I've continued to make Office my specialty to today, all the way up with Office 365 and everything else. I actually work for a company called Planet Technologies. It's based in Germantown, Maryland. It's just up the road from where I'm located. And I usually work with federal and government contracts with the teaching and stuff that I do. So in this session today, this is actually part one of a two-part training, all related to what we call the reference features in Microsoft Word. Today's session, we're going to focus on the C-lettered ones, and that is the tables of contents, captions, and cross-references. They're all kind of closely related. I think it makes a good class that way. And then in part two of this training, you'll see that we would talk about indexes, bookmarks, footnotes, and endnotes, and a few other little small items that would all fit in there. So that's kind of the reference feature series of trainings that we have. Now, specifically, as I said, in this class today, in this session, we do want to look at three areas or three types of things that we can do with Word references. Specifically, we want to look at tables of contents. How do we apply styles appropriately in a document? How do we then generate that table of contents? How do we update it when we need to? And a key thing, formatting tables of contents, which also relates to styles. So we'll talk about that. With captions, we'll look at how do we just add captions into our document. We want to understand the different types of labels and things that we can do with captioning in our document. We'll talk about the formatting of our captions, just like we did formatting of tables of contents. And then we'll talk about a feature what we call creating a table of figures, which is very, very similar to a table of contents. So pay attention to certain things during the tables of contents session, because it is going to be very relevant when we get into things with captions and we want to do a table of figures, because they're nearly identical. Lastly, in this training, we want to look at cross-references, and that's our whole ability in a document to say, well, for more information, or see also, and you want to refer back to or forward somewhere in your document, you want to refer the reader to somewhere else. That's called a cross-reference. So we want to look at how do we add those cross-references, how do we update them, and is there any sort of formatting that we can apply? So that's our goal for this session today. As always, for those of you who are attending live, you can ask questions. I'll see them here in the chat window, and we'll try to address it as I go on. We'll also, after we're done recording, we'll do a Q&A session after the class, and I'll stick around to answer questions for as long as we need to. Okay, so let's do just a little quick introduction to all of these features, which most of this I've kind of already mentioned, but I'd just like to have it on the slides. So as I mentioned, this is part of the reference features series, and it basically centers around things that are on the references tab inside of Microsoft Word. There's a tab there, which I'll show you shortly, and there's all kinds of stuff in there. And basically, these are all features that refer to other things in your document. Like a table of contents refers you to where the chapters are, and an index refers to, okay, where certain words appear, and so on and so forth. There's many, many things that are classified in the references category. These, way back when I first started teaching back in the day, they used to call these, and some materials will still call these long document or large document features, because yeah, typically that's where you're going to find it. Are you going to find a table of contents in a 3-page document? Highly unlikely. But that doesn't mean that you can't not use these features in short documents. That was too many double negatives there, I guess. Basically, I've never liked the whole idea of associating these features with large or long documents, because things like cross-references and captions and other things could very well be in a short document. There's nothing that says that the document size even matters here, okay? So we can use these features in pretty much any document type, but you may still see in some older older manuals or other things, these referred to as long or large document features. So again, we're going to focus on three of these: tables of contents, captions, and cross-references. So let's start at the very beginning because it's a very good place to start. And let's take a look at tables of contents. Now, to create a table of contents, there's two main parts to this process. First off, you got to go through your document and mark the things that you want to appear in the table. And there's even two ways to do that. There's an easy way and a hard way. We're going to look at the easy way because, hey, we like easy, right? But first, you got to go through your document and say, this needs to appear in the table of contents. This needs to appear in the table of contents. Generally, it's your headings that you have or might or should already have in your document. Once you've done all of that work, once you've gone through the document and you've said, okay, this heading is heading, these are the things I want to appear in the table of contents, then you go to where you want it to appear, where you want the table to actually appear, generally at the beginning, and you generate that table of contents. That's when you actually use the references feature. And that's what's a little confusing to people when they use this, is that when you want to create a TOC or table of contents, don't go to the references tab first. If you do, you're going to be lost and it's not going to work the way you think it does. Okay. So you got to do the other work first, and then you can generate that table of contents. Okay. So let's go through and talk about the first step. And that is, we've got to go through our text and we have to mark the text that you want included in the table of contents. And by the way, for shorthand, I will often probably call them TOCs, because you'll also see that when we get to the styles and stuff, that's what we're talking about. So in my materials here, if you see TOC, hopefully you now know what I'm talking about. Okay. So first off, we've got to go through the document and say, this is what I want to appear in the table of contents. Now, there's two ways to do that. The easy way is to make use of the heading styles that are already in the document. In the styles class, we talk about the value of styles a lot. And not only are styles good for formatting, we've talked about that, not only are they good for formatting, but they also tie into lots of other features in Word. And here is one of those cases, is that not only are the heading styles good for formatting and document navigation with the navigation pane, but they're also good for creating these tables of contents, because Word can essentially, okay, you mark something as a heading, that's probably something you're going to want in a table of contents. So you know what, let's save ourselves the trouble. All right, or Word says, hey, I'll save you the trouble. I'll look through your document. Let me grab anything you've marked with a heading style, and I'll pull that into the table of contents. So that's really the main, primary, easiest way to do this. Now we'll go through and do that in a moment. There is a second method. And what's kind of interesting about the second method is that this is the way we actually had to do it years ago, before they really kind of tied tables of contents to heading styles. There is a more hardcore method of using field codes in the document. It's more advanced than I want to get to in this session. I suppose if I ever do a part 3 of these series where we really get into some of the more advanced stuff, maybe I'll do that. I don't know. Maybe by this point you're watching this, I've got it. But I'm just going to avoid that procedure for today because, quite honestly, it's easiest to do it by way of headings. If you want to investigate that other method, it does involve the use of what we call field codes. You actually put TOC field codes into your document and you write the text. And yeah, it does give you a lot more flexibility, but it is a lot more work. Okay, trust me, I used to have to do things that way back in the day, and I am so grateful that we've got this easier method for doing things. So let's take a look at a document and talk about applying those styles. And I thought I had Word open. Apparently I don't. So let's go through and let me open up a document. All right. And I'll drag it over to my window here in just a moment. Dual monitors. Most of us have dual monitors. All right. Come here. There we go. So this document, if you took the styles training already, this document should look familiar. This is just a simple article about one of my favorite movies. I'm a nerd when it comes to Tron, as you can see maybe right above me, right about there. It's a little cut off in the picture, but I've got some Tron light cycle Legos up there. So I'm a big fan of this. So this is just an article I pulled off of Wikipedia a long time ago. And right now, as you can see, there's, basically I've done some basic formatting here. I've got my headings in the document. Now, this is just a short 3-page document, but everything I talk about is still going to apply here. So the first thing I need to do here is apply heading styles to my document. Because if I look at this in here and I click on any of the formatted text, I can see that no style is applied to that. How do I know that? Again, we talked about this in the styles class, but the easiest way to know is look at the style gallery up here. Whenever you click on text, it's going to, the style gallery, if a style is applied, will show here. Now that's not for all styles, it's for the ones that are in the gallery. Yeah, I know. If I had the styles pane open, yes. Anyways, point being, especially right now, since I can see the heading 1 style, if heading 1 was applied to this word introduction, this little box here would be around heading 1. So obviously, this is not heading 1 yet. So I need to make it heading 1. I need to apply heading 1 to this. So I'm going to highlight the text and say, okay, this is a heading 1. So I'm just going to use the gallery here, and I'm going to apply heading 1. Now, what happened? Well, yeah, the formatting of the text changed. And this is often why people don't like styles. Again, we talk about it in the other class. And they go, oh, this is not how I want it to look. So they go back and they reformat each one. Don't do that. Redefine the style. Okay. What am I talking about? Well, let me undo that. Again, quick review. If you haven't taken the class, that's why I'm moving through these fairly quickly. If you haven't watched that styles and formatting video, I'd recommend that. But here, a quick review. I want this to be heading 1, but I don't want it to use the formatting that is built into Word right now. I want to redefine this formatting that I've done, which is Calibri 18 points, bold, and it's blue. I want that to be the heading 1 style. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to come up to where it says heading 1, but I'm not going to click it. I'm going to right click it. And I'm going to say update heading 1 to match selection. That does 2 things. That redefines the heading 1 style as the stuff that I've got here, and it applies that style. So now, look here, when I click on introduction, notice I'm pointing at this like you can see what I'm pointing at. Sorry, let me use my mouse. Now that I've clicked on this, if I look up here at heading 1, you'll see that there's the box around that. Now, I need to go through the document and apply heading 1s in the rest of everywhere else. This is a short document, so it's not too hard to do manually. There is a shortcut to that. Again, we talked about this in the styles class. If you're absolutely sure that the only place you've used Calibri 18 bold and blue is only in headings, that nothing else is formatted that way, then the quick shortcut method is I can come in here to the styles pane. I opened that right here. I'm going to go down to options, and I'm going to make sure these 3 boxes are checked off. And to make it easier to read the list, I'm going to change this to in use and say OK. And I thought I said show preview. OK, I want everything. OK, so everything that's 18 point bold accent 5 small caps. I'm going to select all of those. I'm going to click the drop down, select all 5. So now they're all selected. And then I'm going to apply heading 1. So that's now quickly applied heading 1 to everything that's formatted that way. Now, again, be very careful with that trick, because if there was something else formatted like a heading, but it's not supposed to be a heading, that's going to cause some problems later. All right, let's do the same thing with heading 2. So again, I've got the same problem. I've got some second level headings here. These are my second level headings, but no heading style is applied. How do I know that? Again, look up in the style gallery. It just says normal. So I want this to be heading 2. But if I just apply heading 2 from the box, so right here, it changes the formatting. I don't want you to change the formatting. I like the formatting I already have there. So highlight the text, come up to the gallery, and right click on heading 2 and say update heading 2 to match selection. Boom. So now heading 2, the gallery is a little hard to see, heading 2 is now defined as the formatting I already had. Now, if you like the heading styles that are already there, fine, great, go ahead and do it. And again, as we talked about in the styles class, there are other ways to redefine styles. My favorite way, I like to pre-format and then come up here and say match. To me, it's just easier. It's a lot faster, it's easier, it gets the results that I want. Fantastic. Okay, now, again, let's employ that other trick that I showed. I still have other places that need that heading to applied. Again, I know this is a small document. I am absolutely sure right now that every place I did 14-point bold is where I want headings, okay? So I can use this trick. I can go over to the styles pane. All right, I know that everything that's 14-point bold needs to be a heading too. So I'm going to click on the drop down, say select all 9, and then I'm going to go right here and I'm going to apply heading 2 to that. Okay. If you want more extended about this, again, take a look at the styles and formatting training video. And that I go into more detail in that class. For right now, there's your quick review. Okay, so step 1 is pretty much there. I now have my heading 1s and heading 2s in my document. And I can verify that. A couple of ways I can verify. If I click on something, it changes up here. This is why I like the styles pane. The styles pane can show more stuff than the gallery. And I have a little slightly smaller monitor here at home. So the gallery is a lot smaller. So that's why I really like the styles pane over here to be open. If I click on this origins, okay, that's heading 2. So great. Heading styles are now all applied in the document. You can go as far down as you want. There are up to 9 heading styles that you can possibly use in your document, and you can have up to 9 levels in your table of contents. If you are using 9 levels in your table of contents, you are insane. No. I don't think in all of the documents I have ever done, I've ever gone further than 3 in a table of contents. Quite honestly, if your table of contents goes beyond about the 2nd level, you got way too much detail in your table of contents, right? You're just trying to find a chapter or a subchapter. You don't need your TOCs to be 20 pages long. That kind of defeats the purpose. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox. Okay, step 1 done. So let's come back to our slides. Here we go. All right, so after we've applied heading styles to our text, now we can do the other part of the process, and that is generate a table of contents. Now I can say, okay, Word, make me a table of contents. So let's come in here and let's make this interesting. So I'm gonna, let's give myself an actual page here. Let's insert a little picture too, just for fun. I think I got a bunch of Tron graphics here, so let's do the, let's see here real quick. Which one would make a good heading up at the top? All right, we're gonna put this picture up here. All right, I'll size that down, whatever. And I want all that to be on the next page. There we go. I'm gonna put my table of contents here. Okay, and if you wanna write something, by the way, another recommendation, I want table of contents to stand out. Don't apply heading 1 to this. Why? Anybody? Why would that be a bad idea to apply heading 1 to the table of contents, even if I want it formatted the same way? Let's say I want this, maybe I want this label to look the same as these ones here. Why would it be a bad idea to format this with heading 1? That'd probably be a better question after we've done the process, but maybe some of you can figure that out. If the table of contents is going to be built off what's labeled with heading styles, if I apply heading 1 to this, what's that going to mean? Basically, it's going to mean the words table of contents are going to appear in the table of contents, which would be a little bit silly. All right, so I'm just going to manually format this. If I was really being great about it, I'd probably create a style for that. All right, great. So there's some words table of contents. All right, now let's generate it. Let's make ourselves the table. So now we're going to come to the references tab. Now we can go here. You don't go to the references tab until we've done this part. And easy enough, the table of contents is right here. The stuff for the table of contents is right here. Okay? All right. What did I just do? There we go. So I'm going to click on the table of contents button. Now, first off, you're going to see a bunch of built-in tables of contents options. Please avoid these like the plague. I am not a fan of these, and you're going to see why. The reason I'm not a fan is because if you don't understand what these are doing and then you try to go in and kind of adjust it the way you want, you end up making a bigger mess. So these built-in automatic table 1, 2, and manual, it's very tempting. Don't. Avoid the temptation. You should always select custom table of contents. And yeah, they've even got more tables from office.com. Okay, I guess I don't have any online content there. And that's my opinion. You may disagree with me and think, oh, but I like these. I don't, and you'll see why. I always prefer to go to custom table of contents because I get this nice box that allows me to go into all kinds of options here. And I just like this better. Okay. Something I want you to pay attention to right now before we move on. Notice what's up top here. Table of contents, table of figures. There's also a thing here for index and table of authorities. We will do tables of figures later. Notice these are all in the same box, which means they all have very similar steps and options. All right, first off, we got a little print preview here. The formatting's kind of boring. That's fine. We're going to address that later. There is a web preview over here. I'm not a fan of adding the hyperlinks for a variety of reasons, and it ties into styles, and I don't want to get into that for right now. So here's my opinion. If you're creating this document so that it can be hyperlinked and people could click on something in the PDF and get back and forth, then I would leave the hyperlinks in. If you don't intend this document for online navigation and other things, I tend to want to not use hyperlinks because I think it's just adding something you don't need that later on may cause some confusion if you try to change some other stuff. And I don't want to get all into it right now. Just trust your instructor here on this. I'm not a fan. Again, you may disagree with me, and that's totally okay. But for me, if I don't think I'm going to need electronic navigation like that for this document, I don't like the hyperlinks. Okay, now let's come over here. Now we got some basic options about setting up our table of contents. Things like, do we want to show page numbers? Yeah, it's a table of contents. Do we want to right align the page numbers? Okay, what kind of style do you want? What do you want if you're going to write a line? What do you want to use going across? Do you want to use dots? Do you want to use dashes? Do you want to use dashes and hyphens? You got a few choices there. Okay. Now let's go down to this section. So we've got some options of, do I want to do any formatting, and down to what level do I want to show in my table of contents? Remember earlier I mentioned that in a TOC, if you're using heading styles, and in general, you can have up to 9 levels in your table of contents. Now again, I think that's a little crazy, but you can do that. By default, Word is going to say, all right, I'm going to include the first 3 levels in your table of contents. So if you've marked anything with heading 1, 2, and 3, that is going to now automatically be included in your table of contents. If you don't want that, if you're like, look, I just need the heading 1s, or I only want to go as far as heading 1 and heading 2, that's what you do with the show levels, okay? My document only has 2 levels right now, so I might as well leave that. Now, let me go back up to formats. So here's another thing that's tempting. You're going to want to say, okay, let me pick classic or distinctive or any one of these things, and it changes stuff up here. Again, I'm not a fan. I generally like to go from template, and here's why. In reality, what is always happening in a table of contents, as far as how you're going to end up seeing it formatted, and we'll dive into this in a few moments more, is that like headings, where you have heading 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on forth, styles, tables of contents also have styles associated with them, 1 through 9. Okay, those styles can be defined independently of the heading styles. If you choose any of these formats like classic, distinctive, fancy, and so on and so forth, really what is happening is that Word is redefining the TOC styles to create that look. So if I say I want modern, what has really happened is that Word is applying a bunch of built-in stuff to the TOC styles and saying, here, this is what you're going to end up with. Okay? And if you understand that, that's okay when you then want to later tweak it. Personally, again, I'm not a fan of any of these. They never really suit my purposes. And also, since they're canned, they're not pulled from the document at all. You know, these are not analyzing your document and going, okay, here's what works. It's just going, oh, here's some canned styles. So personally, I always like to pull from template. Again, you may disagree with me, and that's okay. If you're like, look, I'm fine with classic, then great, go for it. Me, control freak, I want to have a little more control there. So I'm going to go with from template. Now there's more stuff here. There is stuff about different options as far as how things are going to pull from a document. There's also some stuff here about modifying the styles, which I could do from here, but I'm going to do it from another spot. So just to hold on to that. So let's just do basics right now. All right, I'm ready. Let's go. Click OK, and ta-da, I have my table of contents. All right, now, looks a little boring, right? And that's because I didn't modify the TOC styles. I didn't use any of those canned options. So the basic TOC styles are here, and they're kind of boring. That's fine, okay? Because now what I'm going to do is quickly modify the style. Again, I'm going to go through this quickly. We cover this more in the styles class, but just to review. So again, here is why I like having the styles pane open. And this is also down here under, just to show you how to get that again in case you missed it. To get the styles pane open, go to the Home tab, and in the bottom right-hand corner of the styles group down here, click that expander. That opens that panel. And then another thing I like to do is only show me the stuff that I'm really using. That's just me. So I just go down to options, and right here where it says select styles to show, I usually just say in use, because there's tons of them and sometimes the list just gets cluttered. Okay, notice now that I've created that table of contents, 2 new styles are now showing up in the in use section because they're in use. And that is the TOC 1 and 2. They're boring. I don't like them. But that's how the template is defined right now. So let's change them to make them look more interesting. Don't do this. Okay, some people are going to like, well, let me take my table of contents and change formatting and blah, blah, blah. Problem is, that's just bad. Direct formatting is bad in general. And secondly, if you ever update your table of contents, you may inadvertently lose the formatting. So don't format directly, format the styles. So I'm going to go to TOC1 over here, and I want to redefine it. So another way amongst many to redefine a style is to come over here, click its drop down, and let's say modify. Here we go. I got a basic box. Again, we covered this in the styles class, but I'm just going to quickly say, all right, let's make the TOC1's 14 points bold, and let's give them a little color. Let's make those dark blue. All right, 14-point bold and dark blue. Okay, ta-da, there we go. Now, see how that's changed? And let's make the TOC2s, let's modify that a little bit, and let's just make those 12 points and bold. Okay, that works. I'm cool with that. All right, get that highlighting off of there. There we go. So if I want to change how my table of contents looks, don't format it directly. You want to change how the styles, you want to change the style definition from the panel. That'll change this. I'm like, oh, maybe I don't like, okay, you know what? The bold is too much. Fine. Come in here, modify. Let's take bold off of there. That's a little better. You can do whatever you want. There's tons of formatting there. You can do paragraph formatting, colors, the whole gamut of things that you would normally do as far as formatting are available there. Okay? All right. Now, oh, what happened there? Oh, okay, yeah, well, I'll fix that. Okay, so I actually already noticed a mistake. Let me go back to my slides here before I do that. Let's make sure we're all caught up. So here's how to do the references table. I already went through that. Here are selecting your options. I'll leave that up for a few seconds in case you're watching the video. Again, for those of you online, there's a handout. Okay, here, and once the TOC has been generated, modify the TOC styles, not the TOC itself. If you direct format, you might lose the formatting when you update it. All right, now let's talk about this. So if items are missing from the TOC when we do this, or if things are being included that shouldn't be, the problem is we applied our heading styles wrong. That's it. That's all it comes down to. If the table of contents is being generated by anything that's got heading styles, then it stands to reason that anything that's got a heading style is going to show up in the table of contents, right? Duh. And I already actually spot a problem. Notice here under production, it says origins, pre, and music. Well, what happened there? Well, for some reason, here, on the words pre-production, it didn't all get included. I'm not sure what's going on there, so let's just re-highlight that. Something funky did happen there. I'm not sure what, but I'm just gonna go reapply heading 2. Sometimes weird things like this happen. It's okay. So I'm now gonna come back up to my table of contents, and I'm going to refresh it, okay? To refresh your table of contents, there's a couple of ways to do it. You can just click on it. You can go up to the ribbon, go to the references section and click on update table, or there's a keyboard shortcut. It's just F9. F9 is to refresh the codes. What I like about doing that is that it gives me this option here. Do I just want to do the page numbers, or do I want to do the entire table? Yes, do the entire table. Click on it. Aha, there, fixed. Okay, pre-production. So now everything's in there that needs to be. Here is another case where you might end up with something weird. So let me just do something really quick. So I'm going to take this, and this is another mistake that I see people do. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Turn that off. Turn that off. Okay, let me take the formatting off of here. This is another thing that I often see happen. I think it's manually. I got to remove all this stuff. I got to remove the small caps in color. Give me 1 second here. All right, so let's do that, and let's take off the small caps. So here is another issue. Sometimes you don't know that something has heading formatting, especially if the document's been screwed up or people applied things wrong. And I see this mistake a lot. Somebody applies a heading style and they're like, oh, that's not supposed to be applied there. Instead of unapplying the style, which is the right thing to do, they reformat the text. Again, we talked about this in the styles class. The problem is, even though this doesn't look like it's heading 1, if you look at the panel, it is heading 1. So if I come up here to my table of contents and refresh it, you end up with this. And you're like, whoa, what's all that text? Like, why is there all this random text in my table of contents that doesn't appear there? Problem is, there's something that has heading style applied, and even worse, somebody direct formatted over this style, and now you've got a style plus direct formatting, and that's causing the issue. Again, this is why the styles panel over here is very handy. So I can see, oh yeah, if I come down to this text here, the offending text, this is heading 1 plus 11 point not bold, blah, blah, blah. Somebody just went through and, okay, anyways, how to fix it? Again, hover over the offending text. Let's select that instance and then just say, it just needs to be normal, or apply whatever formatting it's supposed to be. So I'm going to do that as normal. Now, it doesn't look like anything changed down here, but notice the rogue heading 1 stuff disappeared from over here. And now if I come up to my table and refresh it, bam, update table, the rogue text disappears. So after you headingize the things you're supposed to headingize, and you then create that TOC, and then maybe formatting, and maybe I did that backwards, probably before you even do the formatting, you're going to notice problems. But basically 2 things. If something's not in the table that should be, you forgot the heading style. Conversely, if something is in the table that shouldn't be, then a heading style is applied that you didn't expect. The trick there, though, is that if somebody direct formatted the heading style and did some weird stuff, it's not going to be obvious. And again, that's why the styles pane is very handy for that. When I had that, you notice there was that rogue heading 1 with direct formatting. Again, we talked about that more in the styles class. So all I gotta do is find the offending formatting, remove the formatting, remove that style, put on the correct styling, and then generate your table of contents. Okay? That's what it always comes down to. All right, so back to my slide. So if items are missing from the TOC or things appear that shouldn't, you likely have not, oops, typo, I hate that. You likely have you have not applied the styles correctly. Sorry about that. If you need to add update, apply the heading styles as needed. Okay, if you continue to edit your document, and we talked about refreshing, if I add something else in here, it's all just, again, about refresh. So I'm like, okay, let me just throw in a subsection here. What I just want to have here, we'll just call this more stuff, whatever, it doesn't really matter. There's my new subheading. I'm going to apply heading 2 to that. Notice it doesn't appear up here. Tables of contents are not dynamic. You have to tell them, hey, go out and refresh. There's a good reason for that. If every time I applied a heading style, the table of contents would have to refresh or update itself, that could take a lot of processing power, especially if I've got a long document. So that's why we have to manually refresh stuff. So again, I'm a keyboard shortcut person when it comes to this. I like the F9 because also F9 is going to be important for a lot of other stuff we're going to do today. So just get that in your head. Ta-da, there's the new thing that I've added. And again, if I don't like how it looks, I can change it. Now, if you want your TOC styles to be the same as the actual heading styles in the document, you can do that. That would be pretty rare though. Remember, a table of contents should be simple. It should be something that a user can look at and just quickly find what they need. We're not trying to be all fancy schmancy here. Okay? All right. So let's summarize things. If you all don't have any questions, let's summarize some stuff about TOCs. So first off, you got to mark the materials. And the easiest way to mark the things that you want in a TOC, use your heading styles. If you don't like the formatting of the heading styles that are built in, change it. It's simple, okay? If you don't like what the built-in heading style is, modify it. Either go into the modify menu or highlight something and then say, update heading to match style. Easy enough, okay? Then you're going to generate that TOC. Go to where you want it in the document, and then you generate the TOC. Scott's advice, always go custom. Always skip the canned options, go right to the custom menu, and do everything from template and built in, and then modify it on your own later. You have much more control over how it looks. If you don't care about that, if you're not as anal retentive as I am when it comes to those things, fine, use the canned options. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't like them. I like to just generate it, and I'm going to format it the way I want it by way of styles. Lastly, update your TOC as needed. And that can be anything from things, adding new things, things don't appear, things do appear. Make your changes and make sure you refresh your TOC. Okay, now a lot of this stuff in this table of contents section will apply in the next section when we talk about tables of figures. Any questions? Nope. All right, time for me to have a little sip of Gatorade. Sorry, that's not meant as an advertisement. I just get sick of drinking soda all day while I'm stuck at home here. And now let's go on to the next type of reference that we want to do in a document, and that's something called a caption. So captions are labels that we can add to any kind of graphic object that's in our document. And this includes things like pictures, diagrams, tables, equations. There are myriad things that you might have in your document, and we can caption those. Okay, so here's what we're talking about. So let me come back to my Tron article, and let's say I want to include some pictures and diagrams and things that are important. So maybe here underneath plot, I want to just have a picture here. So again, let's just insert a picture from all the stuff that I've got. I've just got a bunch of different Tron graphics. I'll just do this. And when we're talking about figures, often what it is something like this, where you'll go below the picture and you'll say figure 1. figure 1, logo from the new Tron Legacy movie. Okay, you'll do something like that. And then you'll go into your document, and then you got something else to add. So maybe we'll add something down here. I'll put it right there, and I'll insert another picture. I got all kinds of these. So let's put the Disney castle in there. Okay, that's huge. Let's make that small. All right, and we'll do another. I'll write something here. Figure 2, Disney castle with Tron theme. Okay, now so far that's not terrible, right? We did it all. It wasn't too hard. But here's the problem. So now as I'm working on my document, we add more stuff. I come in here and now I decide that maybe right here, I need to have another picture or a graphic or something. You know what, to be more interesting, let's do a little smart art. So let me throw in a little quick smart art. I'll just do the default, whatever. Let's make that a little, not take up as much height. Okay. And we'll go, I'll do some of the character names. Alan, Sam, and Laura. Okay, whatever. Anyways, and now we'll add a label. Now I'm ready to put I'm ready to do a figure here. Well, what's my problem? I want to do another figure right here for this. But what is my problem now? Well, I got 2 other figures in the document already, don't I? Right? I went through and I labeled this one as 1 and the other one as 2, but now I got 1 in between them. So that means, okay, well, now I got to look back. Okay, when was the previous figure? Okay, well, that's figure 1. All right, this is now 2. Then I got to renumber this one to 3. Obviously, right? We got a numbering problem here, and it's a lot of work. And maybe you do go through and fix it and think you fixed it, but you missed one. Whatever. Captioning takes care of this problem. Okay. And actually, we've got a lot of things that we can solve with this. So right now, I'm going to go through and take off the silly captions that I wrote, or the manual things that I did. These aren't even true captions. And we're going to do it the right way. So what I'm going to do, again, we're going to come to the References tab. Actually, let me go back to my slides. Now, captions can exist in lots of different types. Okay, the word caption is broad for lots of different labels that we can have in the document. You're going to see that in just a moment. You can have lots of different labels. You can have equations, you can have figures, you can have diagrams, you can have tables, you can even create your own labels that you use in your document. Okay. Regardless of what label you use, how Word is going to work with these captions overall is it's going to treat the labels as a sequence or a group. So every time I use the word figure, that's a sequence. Okay, and Word is going to manage that as a separate sequence from diagrams. So I actually have a document here that I'll bring up in a bit, where I've got figures, diagrams, and tables. They all have captions, but they are numbered according to that series. Okay, there's a figures series, there's a tables series, and there's a diagrams series. And there's reasons why I wanted to do that in my particular document. Now, if you don't want to get that fussy and you're like, look, anything that's a picture or offset thing, they're all going to be figures, then great. Use figure for all of them. But if you're like me, where the requirements of the document had to be a little bit different, where screenshots were one thing and diagrams were another and tables were yet another, then I had to create 3 labels and they were all numbered separately. Again, the great part about that is Word takes care of all the numbering for me, so I don't have to worry about any of it. Okay? All right, so let's start the process. So I'm going to take this picture and I'm just going to click on it. Okay, and on the on the References tab, I'm going to come here to Insert Caption. Okay, now I don't like how this box is set up. This is just my thing. First off, it actually says it wants you to start typing whatever caption. That's backwards. There's other stuff to do first, in my opinion, and then we'll type a caption. So first off, I actually want to look at the options. So first, what label do you want to use? How do you want to label your things that you're labeling here? There are 3 built-in options. You can do equation, figure, and table. Okay, those are the built-in ones. What's nifty though is that you can create any label that you want. So for instance, I have a document where I used the label diagram. Diagram is not one of the choices here. Or maybe you want to label all your screenshots as screenshot 1, screenshot 2, so on and so forth. That label doesn't exist here. No problem. Right here, see where it says new label? Create your label. Okay? Keep in mind though, every label is treated as its own separate sequence. Okay, so if I do screenshots, don't, make sure you apply the screenshot series to all your screenshots and not accidentally, maybe a figure, because then things are gonna be not the way you want them to be, okay? As you're gonna see, all those labels are treated as separate groups. So I've got figures, I got tables, I got diagrams, blah, blah, blah. Right now, let's keep it simple. I'm gonna go with figure, okay? But if I wanted to start using or creating my own deal, it's right down there, new label. Next, with the label, where do you want it to appear, above or below the object? Here is my overall advice. For anything other than tables, you should use below the selected item, okay? So if it's a picture, a graphic, a diagram, a smart art, any of that sort of stuff, generally those things aren't multiple pages long. So you should pretty much always do the label below the item. About the only time that you should use above the item is if you are doing your tables, like when you have table 1, table 2, you see that a lot of times. And the reason for that is that sometimes tables can go multiple pages. And I don't want to have to turn 4 pages to see, oh, what is this table called? You want to see that as the first thing. So generally speaking, again, this is a general guideline. You don't have to follow this, but basically your caption label stuff should always be underneath, unless it's something long and multi-paged, and put it at the top. Because if you put it at the end, your user doesn't know what it is. They have to flip several pages to see it. Got it? All right, so I'm going to go with below the selected item. We already talked about new label. Now, let's take a look at numbering. You can use any type of numbering that you want for your labels. Now, again, each label can have its own numbering. So maybe I want my figures to use regular Arabic numerals. Maybe I want my diagrams to use Roman numerals. Maybe I want my tables to use letters. Okay, you can't mix and match though. I can't say on my figures sometimes use numbers and then sometimes use Roman numerals. You can't do that. You got to pick what type of numbering you want for this particular label. So again, you've got all the standard choices here. You got numbers, letters, and Roman numerals. Okay, I'm fine with the regular numbers. In an advanced class, we'll get into how to, with your captions, if you want them to have section or chapter numbers. So in some documents, you'll see they've got figure 2-1, 2-2, and then at the next chapter or section, it goes to 3 and so on and so forth. That's the advanced class. So that'll be the part 3 of this series if and when I get to that. So for today, we're just going to keep it simple and just do regular numbering throughout the document. So it is possible, but you have to get section breaks involved and so on and so forth. So there's more stuff that goes along with that, or headings, is whatever. Okay. All right. So I'm fine with this type of numbering. Now I like to come back to the caption and write it. Again, I like to do it this way because there are so many other things I need to do first. So you can see that the caption is formatted. This is tied to styles. So we'll fix this later. So if you I don't want italicized, I don't want blah, 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 that's tied to styles. So we'll fix that later. Now you need to type the information. So let me go to here. So I've already gone through this. Here are our options: label, position, numbering. So I talked about these. I need to keep with my slides here, sorry. So we talked about the labels, we talked about the position, we talked about the numbering. Now I'm going to actually add the caption text. Again, you don't have to do it in this order, but I think this order makes more sense. Now, here's the tricky part. anything you want to be on this label, you've got to add. The only thing that Word is going to do automatically is the name of the label and the numbering. So right now you see it says figure 1. That's the only thing it's going to do. So if you want all of these to have like a colon and then a space, you have to add that here. And you have to be consistent about that. You could make that part of the label itself. The only thing that's a little screwy about that is later on when you do like a table of figures, that punctuation gets included because it's part of the label. So I don't recommend making your label like figure colon. I would recommend you just got to type it every time and do good proofreading. Unfortunately, that's the only way around it. Because if you include that as part of the, because then furthermore, if you do some of these as figure and some of these as figure colon, well, that's two different labels. So this is one of those things where you just got to be a smart consumer. I like to have a colon after them, but you may also want to do a dash. Maybe you want to do space dash space, whatever. Just be consistent, okay? So let me do a colon, and I will say this is the Tron Legacy 89 Forever logo, which is what that is. Let me put that in quotes. Okay, all right, let me say okay. So now you'll see that item is captioned. Now you might go, ugh, I don't like how the formatting. Hold that thought. All right, we'll fix that later. All right, first off, let me go through and label my stuff. So I've got that as figure 1. Let me do this one as a separate series. So let's make this figure 2. And I will do insert caption. So that's figure 2. Now, I don't need to change any of these options. It's going to stick with the default I had before. So we'll call this Disney Castle with Tron theme. Okay, say okay. And then let me come to this one, and let's do this as a separate sequence. So I'm going to insert caption here. I'm going to create a new label. I'm going to call this a diagram. This is a diagram. So notice, new label, new numbering, right? Okay. All right. And I'll just go with Arabic numerals. I'm good with that. Colon, diagram 1, characters in the movies. Okay. All right. Now, again, just to show you that the numbering and everything adjusts itself automatically. All right. Let's say now between 1 and 2, let me come here and let's throw in another graphic. So I will insert picture, and we'll do the identity disk here. Insert. All right, these are all huge. So let's scale that down. All right, now I'm going to insert the caption. Now, I'm in between figure 1 and figure 2. So what's going to happen if I choose figure? It's going to change this to 2, and it's going to make this one 2 and the other one 3. Just watch. Let me go to references, and I'm going to do insert caption. And look here. All right, well, it's picking up diagram. No problem. This is supposed to be a figure. If it picks up the wrong label, that's fine. Notice this is now figure 2. The other one's going to be figure 3, and we can check on that. Figure 2, Tron Legacy Identity Disk. And say OK. Now, let's double check. Did Word do what I wanted it to do? Sure enough. Look at that, figure 3. Now, I know this is small, but we'll get to that. So I'm going through and I'm adding all the formatting that I'm doing all the captions in my document. Now let's talk formatting of these. Okay. Regardless of so here's one of the downsides, regardless of the label type. So the labels themselves, as we mentioned, are numbered and grouped individually. So the fact that I used diagram and figure, diagram has its own sequence, figure has its own sequence. Unfortunately, in Word, they're all going to be governed by the same style. So no matter what labels you use for your captions, they're all going to be governed by the caption style because they're all captions. So unfortunately, you can't have one style for figures, another style for diagrams, and another style for the other ones. The only way around it is you'd have to manually format. You could create a new style, but you'd have to go through and apply that style and da-da-da-da. So honestly, I wouldn't go through all that work. Just live with the fact that captions all are going to look a certain way. Now, you don't have to live with the fact that they look the way they do. I'm like, okay, that's a little small, it's a little hard to see, and I want to change things about it. Great. Modify the style just like you modify anything else. So again, here's where the styles pane is very helpful. So I'm going to come over here. Look, caption style already appears here because it's in use. We did that setting earlier. So I'm going to hover over it. I'm going to click its drop down. Click its drop down on the right side. Easy for me to say. Modify. All right. First off, I don't like the light gray. Let's go just regular black. Let's make them a little bigger. I want 10 point. I think that's good. I'll live with the italics. I'm fine with that. And we'll say okay. There. Now the caption's changed. Okay. I could change my mind later. Oh, you know what? Maybe that's too small. Maybe I need more formatting back and forth. And again, this is where you can get into, okay, maybe they're too close. Maybe you want a certain amount of space after each figure. You can get into paragraph spacing. That's yet another topic for another class. You know, instead of always trying to put double spaces after every figure, just build the space into the style. There's lots of great things like you could do about that. Okay. All right, so let's come back here. So caption formatting is governed by the style. So different labels cannot have different style. All of our captions in our document use the caption style. I would live with it. I think that's fine. I really don't see the need. You could still manually style something. If you really, really want something, I mean, it's not the end of the world. If I'm look, this diagram one needs to be different, you can do that. I'm like, look, I need that. I want that one bold and I want it to be 14 point. You can do that. And then you get an extra caption plus bold down here that creates one of what we call those fake or faux styles. It works. I'm not a fan. I like consistency in everything. And those of you who know me know why. Okay, now let's take this. Now let's combine this feature with the previous feature. Okay. Oh, sorry, let me address this. So our captions, we already saw this. Captions don't need updating. With a table of contents, we do have to update it, but captions, I mean, the whole point is the numbering updates itself. So the numbering sequence for each label adjusts automatically as you add and delete things. Yay, I don't have to worry about trying to find the numbers myself. That's fantastic. That's the whole point, right? Okay, now let's combine, sorry, I was a little ahead of myself. Now let's combine the captions feature with the table of contents feature. As you'll find, especially in large documents, there will maybe be at the beginning or at the end, it doesn't really matter, a table of the figures. These are all called tables of figures. It's a generic term for all of the labels. So in Word, as you're going to see as we do these, they're all called tables of figures, but you can have a table of figures, a table of tables, a table of diagrams. Generically, though, in Word, they're all called tables of figures. Because table of labels just sounded funny, and table of captions, I guess, just also sounded weird. I don't know. Now, so we can have tables of figures. Now, unlike with styling, where they all got to be styled the same, the opposite applies here if I'm going to make a table of figures. And that is a table of figures can only include one kind of label. So I can have a table of the diagrams, and I can have a table of the tables, and I can have a table of the figures. But what you can't have is one table that lists the diagrams, figures, screenshots, blah, 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 all in one place. Word can't do it. So they all have to be separate. And again, that kind of makes sense. Look, if you want them all to be together, call them figures, all right? Or call them all the same label, okay? So here's how we do that. At this point, it's all knowledge that we actually already have from the tables of contents. Now, these can appear at the beginning, at the end, it doesn't really matter. I don't think I really have any advice on this. You may want to think of this like an index feature and put the table of figures at the end, or you may want to put it at the beginning. That's up to you. I think for fun here, let me do a couple things. Let me put it at the end. I'm actually going to put it on a separate page. I'm going to call this table of figures, and I'm actually going to apply heading 1 style so that that appears in my table of contents. All right, let's generate that table of figures. So we go to the same place, we go to the References tab, and we don't go to Table of Contents, but we go here next to Captions, and it says Insert Table of Figures. Now, when I launch that, though, look familiar? Yep, it's the same box as we had over here, but we got to launch it from here. Oddly enough, and this is again a weird thing about this box, you can see the other tabs, but you can't get to them. I don't understand that, but anyways, that's how it works. Now, a lot of this setup is exactly what we had over in the TOC when we did the TOCs. We got a print preview. Do I want to have hyperlinks? No, not a fan of the hyperlinks. Do I want to show page numbers, tab leaders, blah, blah, blah. Same deal there. Formatting from template. I like from template. You can pick one of the canned ones. I'm not a fan. Then the one thing that is different here is now you have to say which label should be in this table of figures, okay? Remember, in this case, the words table of figures is generic. So I can go to this list of caption labels, and now all of the labels that are either built in or that I've created in the document are listed here. So you can see that my custom label of diagram is here. Again, you have to pick one. You can't say, well, I want a table and have the diagrams and the figures. You can't do it. You got to pick one or the other. So let me just do the figures, okay? Do I want to include label and number? Sure, yeah, all this stuff is good. There's other options, yada, yada, it's fine. So I'm going to click OK, and ta-da, there is my table of figures. Aw, I really don't like how it's formatted, all right? What do I do? Do I highlight the stuff there and format it, or do I do something else? Audience, what do I do? Y'all have been pretty quiet today. What do I do here? Do I format this directly, or what do I change? Hint, it's in the styles pane now. What do I alter? The style. But the trick is, what style do I alter? Look closely. Can you see it? Do I modify the TOC styles, or do I modify something else? Psst, it's something else. Table of figures. Again, tables of figures have a lot in common with tables of contents, but they do have their own styling for a variety of reasons. Mostly because in a table of contents, we can have up to 9 levels, right? We have 9 levels of headings. We can have 9 levels of TOCs. With figures, there's only one level, right? There's only one sequence. You don't have figure 1, figure A, figure 1A, figure 1B, figure 2, figure 2. You don't have that. You just have one level here. So I would modify the table of figures formatting. What that also means, though, is that all tables of figures are going to have the same formatting. So for instance, just to do this, let me add now, let's do this process one more time before I alter anything. Let me do a table of diagrams. And I will also format that with heading 1. And let me insert table of figures. Let me do diagrams. I don't need the hyperlinks. Say OK. There, I just generated another table very quickly. Now watch, if I modify the table of figures, notice there's only one style here. There isn't a table of figures style and a table of diagrams style. Remember, all of these are considered tables of figures, even though we've got different labels. So there's only one style. So I can come in here and modify it. And I'll say, okay, let me put more paragraph spacing after each one. I like a little more space in between there. And let's just make these 12 points for fun. There, that's good. That does what I need to do. But notice when I altered that style, both of these changed, okay? You can't have a different style for each. Again, you could direct format if you want to. I'm never a fan of that, but that could be the thing. Now, what's one other thing I could do right now before we move on to cross-references? How did I format this table of figures and table of diagrams heading? I just said it. What did I put on there? I applied a heading style. So if I applied the heading style and these happen to be at the end of my document, what does that mean that I can do here? I could refresh, couldn't I? Because I formatted those with heading 1, and heading styles get included in my table of contents. So if I come up here and press F9 and say update entire table, well, look at that. Now my table of figures and my table of diagrams appear in the table of contents because they're at the end of the document. And I could do that for index too. When we get into indexes, do you want where your index appears to be in the table of contents? Just format the heading, format the header with heading 1. The only time you never want to do that is right here. Don't label this with heading 1. Otherwise, you will have an additional entry in your table of contents that says table of contents. That's a little silly. Okay? All right. So like your TOCs, if you add, so like TOCs, since our tables of figures are like TOCs, sorry, just redundantly, those do need to be updated. So caption numbers and stuff do update themselves automatically, but a table doesn't. So it's just like a table of contents. You do have to refresh it. So if you do add new fingers, if you add new figures, new labels, whatever else, you do have to update those manually. Now, in the cross references section, when we get there, I'm going to show you a nifty trick that allows you to update all of them at once rather than going from one to one, going one to one. All right, talked about the TOF style. Okay, did that already. So tables of figures have their own style, but all TOFs use the same style. So you just got to go with it. That's just how it works. All right, so to summarize this section before we move on to cross-references, captions are labels that we can add to graphics, tables, equations, figures, screenshots, whatever. There's lots of things we can apply those to. But the labels are grouped and numbered automatically by word. So each of them are separate sequences. So your figures are one thing, your diagrams are another, your tables are another. We can create custom labels, but they're all going to be separate things. And lastly, we can combine captions with tables of contents, in quotes, and say that and generate tables of figures for each label that's in a document. So that's really cool. All right, let's do our last C reference. I mean, no, tables of contents starts with T, but we've got contents, we have captions, and now we have cross-references. So cross-references are basically text in a document that says, hey, for more information, see this, or just see also, or whatever. But it's anything in a document that says, hey, go look for this. And you've often probably done this in a document, right? You come here and you might say, for more information, see the home media section on page, and then you go, okay, where's the home media section? So we scroll down, where's home media? Home media, there's the home media, and it is on page, according to this, it's page 5. Okay, so we scroll back up. All right, where was that? Right, you got to scroll all the way back, find it, whatever, there's multiple ways. On page 5. All right, there's 2 problems with what I just did, where it says, for more information, see the home media section on page 5. What are the 2 problems? One of them's obvious and one of them is not so obvious. What are the 2 problems that I can have with that cross-reference? What's the easy one? Let me blow this up a bit. What's the easy problem with this cross-reference right here? What if the page number changes? Yeah, absolutely, right? If you go through and do a bunch of these and then somebody comes in and edits the document or changes things, well, now I got to go back and find all these things, and that's a problem. What's the other one? There's a second one that might not be as obvious with the way I've done this. Page number was the easy one. What's the other problem with how I did this? I'll give you a hint. It's right there. Something with the home media label. Yep, Karen, you're right. Yeah, what if in my editing of this document, I'm like, home media, oh, that's a terrible name. Later on, I'm like, oh, let me change the name of this to something else, maybe just media. And I change that. But I don't realize that there's a reference somewhere else in the document that says, look for the home media section. What if I give it a completely new name? Now my user is going to be in the document. It's going to say, look for the home media section. Well, first off, maybe it's not called home media anymore, and maybe it's not on page 5. Okay, So you got two possible problems there. So the way I did this is all wrong. You know, there's got to be a better way, and that's what a cross-reference can do for us in a document. Instead of putting the actual text there, we create some codes in the document that allows us to update these things. So cross-references, what's really cool about these is that, amongst many things, is that they can actually refer to lots of different types of things in your document. They can refer to any numbered list. You can use your heading styles. We didn't get into these ones in this class or this session, but they can also refer to any bookmarks, footnotes, endnotes, and equations that are in your document. And they can refer to, we've covered these ones, figures and tables. So any of those items can be you can create a cross-reference to those. All right. Now you might be like that home media section that falls under headings because I applied a heading style. See, styles are important. They are very, very important to use in your documents. So we create these cross-references so that if you are referring to a page number or if you are referring to a title of a section, you can update those automatically. You can update those. Now, the trick here though, and we'll cover this in a bit more in a few minutes, unlike some of the other stuff that we've done, they don't update automatically. You do need to refresh them, but you might note a problem with that already, but I'll show you the trick. Don't worry, it's coming. All right, so first off, to create a cross-reference, I need to go in my document where I want that cross-reference to appear and then select cross-references. So this is my cross-reference that I want. So first off, I'm going to get rid of all of this business right here. And I'm just going to go for more information, see the, and I want to refer to home media. I want that text to appear here. So I'm going to do a cross-reference. And that brings up this box. So the first thing I want to do is I want to pick the kind of item that I want to refer to in the document. So under numbered item here, I have all these choices. I'm sorry, under the reference type, I have all these choices, a numbered item, a heading, so on and so forth. So home media is a section that's got a heading. So I'm going to do heading, and notice all of the things in my document that have heading styles applied appear here. As we go through this, as you do any of this, whether you pick figure or heading or any of those things, if what you're looking for doesn't show up in the list, you didn't mark it properly. So you might need to go back and apply heading styles. You might need to go back and apply a bookmark. You may need to go back and put in a caption. See, these things are all tied together, right? It's all related in the circle of life, or I guess this would be more like a web of life. All right, I want to refer to a heading. I want to refer to the home media section. I don't need the hyperlink, so I'm going to get rid of that. Again, unless I know this, I want this document to be electronically navigable, I usually turn that off. You may disagree with me, and that's cool. Now, here's the tricky-ish part. What right now do I want the reference to? Depending on what you pick here, there's different types of things that you could insert for the reference. Do I want the reference to be the heading text? Do I just want the page number? There's lots of things that can appear here. So depending on what you pick in the reference type, you're going to have different options here. For right now, I know I just want the heading text, but notice there's no option here for heading text and page number. That's because I'm going to need to do two cross-references. That's okay. So just bear with me. I know where I'm going here. So right now, I said, if we go back to the document, it said, for more information, see the, I want the name of the section or the heading. So just go with the default here, the heading text. And I'm going to say insert. And I go back to my document. And if you look behind here, it now says see the home media. Okay. Now what's cool here is the box stays up here so that I can add additional references. So I'm going to say see the home media section on page. And now I want to put in the page number. So now I can come back to the cross-reference box. Notice it's very nicely stayed up for me. I still want to refer to that heading. I'm still referring to home media, but this time instead of the text, tell me what's the page number where that heading appears. So now I'm going to insert the page number. I'm going to say insert, ta-da, and then I'm going to close that. And now I have the two parts here. And I can tell that these are codes now because if I click on that, look there, if I click on the words home media, it turns gray. That lets me know that's a code. And if I click on the 5, notice that. Let me blow this up so you can really see what's going on here. There, notice the 5 is now shaded in gray, and that's shaded in gray. When you see something shaded in gray in a Word document, that pretty much always means it's some sort of code. So now I've got an accurate thing that's going on here. Now let me come back to my slides. Let's see here, reference type, insert what you want. So I went through these steps, insert blah, 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 blah. If the item you want to refer to doesn't appear, it's not referable. So make sure you might need to add a heading style or a caption. These are all things that I said. All right, insert any cross-reference box stays open. I know I need to keep up with my slides here. I get to talking and I forget to come back to my slides. I'm sorry. All right. Oh, and by the way, for those of you that weren't on when I uploaded the slides earlier, just hang on till the end and I'll re-upload the file one more time. So I already did this. You can have multiple cross-references in the same sentence. I always like to do the name of something and the page. That's just me. You can always just say, see the blah section. My problem with that often is then the person might have to go back to the table of contents to find where that section is located. So why not do the double reference? For more information, see the blank on page, whatever. Give them both so they know what they're looking for. Or whatever, it's up to you. I like to do both. That's just me. If you just want to do, hey, see page, whatever, fine. All right. Now, let's get into where's the formatting? Oh, okay, I have these out of order. First off, let's talk formatting very quickly. Unlike captions and tables of figures and tables of contents, there is no associated style for cross-references. The only reason this home media ended up being bold is because there's some bold formatting on the heading itself. You could go through and create your own style, but you have to manually apply it. So I have done that in documents where I actually create a cross-reference style and use it. So maybe, for instance, I want all of this to be in italics, and I might highlight all of that, put it in italics, and create a cross-reference style, but you will have to manually apply that. I could also just direct format if I want to and say, okay, on page 5, I want that to be bold and just be done with it. Again, styles are better. Your choice. You can just go with what it puts in there. You could maybe not do any formatting, or you could create your own cross-reference style. You are just going to have to manually apply it every time. Okay, up to you. So cross-references don't update themselves. So now let me go back in my slides here and let's talk about this. Cross-references don't update themselves automatically. And to show you what I'm talking about there is, oops, what did I just do? Print layout. Sorry, I was meant to do this one. Let's go down to where home media is on page 5. And first off, let me change it to just media. All right, I just want that to say media distribution. And maybe let's make this really huge so that it gets bumped down to, whatever. I'm just going to bump this to the next page. Okay, so now media distribution appears. So I changed the words I changed home media completely, and it's on a completely different page. But if I go back up to the cross-reference, nothing has changed here. Cross-references in this case are like tables of contents. They do need to be manually updated. And they're all separate. So I do need to click this one and this one to update them. Now I could go one by one. I could click this one, I could press F9, or you could right click. That works as well. You can right click and say update field. And I could do that. Heck, I could even highlight this whole thing and just do F9 and that works. But that could be a bit of a problem if you have a rather large document trying to locate all of these. That could be very problematic. I mean, you could say, all right, well, show me any place I did for more information, but maybe you weren't consistent about that either. So there's an interesting little trick that we can do to update all of our cross-references. And what's also really cool about that is that the side effect of what I'm about to show you is that not only will it update all of your cross-references, but it will update any field codes that are in your document. Now that could be a good thing and that could be a bad thing. So what we can do is we can select the entire document and say basically refresh everything. Refresh my table of contents, refresh my table of figures, refresh my table of diagrams, refresh all of my cross references. You can do that all in one shot. Okay, so here's how we're going to do that. I'm going to come back to my document and I want to just select the whole document. Do not try to click at the beginning of the document and drag all the way through, because if you've got a 100-page document, that will take forever. Who knows the keyboard shortcut for selecting all things? It is a universal keyboard shortcut found in many, many programs when I want to select everything. Thank you. Yes, Jate, it is Control A. Hey, that rhymed. Yes, Jate, it's Control A. All right, sorry. Control A. Select your entire document. All right, that's a good one to memorize. Now, we already learned the shortcut for refresh. What's the shortcut for refresh? Everything's now selected. Now I want to do a refresh. F9. Yep, there we go. Now I F9 this. Now you're like, whoa, what's this? You told it to refresh everything. Every time it hits a table of contents, it's going to refresh those. Fine. Update the entire table. Okay. Now it already updated. It's going through and it's updating everything that's a code. All right. Do I want to update my table of figures? You might get prompted a couple of times for those because I have 2 of them. It goes through, fix the cross references. Ta-da! Everything has now been updated. So that's also magic. You could also do that if you have, indexes, a couple of different tables and so on and so forth. You can refresh everything with that Control A F9 trick. So that refreshes everything. Oh, it was already in this slide. Well, I hope you knew it off the top of your head, but yes, the instructions were here. It only updated home media to media instead of media distribution. Oh, you know what? Yeah, thank you for catching that, Karen. I didn't apply the style correctly. This is not styled right, but that's a good catch. Yeah, I did the wrong thing here. I need to apply the heading style appropriately. And now let's fix that. Good catch on that. Let me F9 that. No, what's going on there? Why is that being stubborn? Let me fix this. Let's clear it all just for the sake of whatever. Let's highlight it. Heading 2. Okay. And let's Control A F9 everything. Huh. Why is that not updating? Update field. Okay, it's being stubborn. I'm not sure what's going on there. This is the second Zoom meeting I'm causing. No, you're not causing issues. That's a really good catch. And I'm a little annoyed right now that it's not doing what it's supposed to do. Let's go to cross-reference. It updated here. All right, I'm not sure what's happening. I'll fix it later. It probably has to do with something I did screwy with style. So I'll fix it later. It's supposed to update itself. I don't know why it's not. I'll find it later. It does. It should. I don't know why it's not behaving, but thank you for pointing out. Good catch though. Hey, with all things like this, automatic is great, but sometimes it doesn't. So there's ways. Anyways, good catch. I'll research what's going on there later. But the text is supposed to update itself. If you catch that it doesn't, I mean, at least the number updated, that's definitely good. I've not ever seen a problem with the numbers. So at least the person can sort of figure it out. But yeah, that's an error. So I'll research later what happened there. All right, so as a side benefit of this, everything gets updated. I already talked about this. I think I just need to reorder my slides. There is no style associated with cross-references. So if you want to create one, you can do that. The cross-references sometimes will pick up the style of the surrounding text. Sometimes they'll pick up parts of the style of the text that they're referring to. It's kind of wonky. So this is a case where cross-reference formatting you kind of have to deal with on your own. Okay, so to summarize this section, cross-references refer to items somewhere else in your document. They can be pretty much any type of thing like a heading or a figure or a screenshot. It allows you, and then they can be updated. The cross references do need to be refreshed manually. They are not going to update themselves automatically. So make sure you do that, either refresh them one by one or do the whole Control A F9 trick, which is nice to update everything. Cross references don't have an associated style, so they're just going to come out however. And that is a bit annoying, but you can create your own style and be done with it. Okay? You just have to apply it manually. All right. Wow. This is cool. I love this stuff. And there's even more. There's a part 2 to this. Maybe by now, if you're watching this online, maybe part 2 is already published. Hey, do you need some additional help with Word training? Well, I always recommend to go to Microsoft's website to start. I know, right? But they actually really do have a lot of good stuff there. And not only can you find help for Word, but you can find help for all of their products at support.office.com. Just go there, click on the Word icon, and you'll find tons of stuff there for Word, Excel, Teams, PowerPoint, SharePoint, whatever floats your boat. Okay. Hey, more of my trainings, they're here on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, for those of you that are on the call today, go find my channel. Just search for my name. Don't search for the Facebook group name. Search for my name. You'll find the other videos that I've got out there. If you are not in the Facebook group yet, I would recommend you do that right now. As of doing this today, my group is called the Beardy MCT. I've got a beard and I'm an MCT, so that's what I went with. Join that Facebook group and you will get invites and notifications of all the trainings that I'm doing. Just going to keep kind of doing these as much as I can for the topics that y'all request. So join that group and get the updates. Appreciate it. So that's all for the recording. I'm going to stop this here. Folks that are on the call right now, hang on. We'll do Q&A and I'll also re-upload the slides. For those of you who are watching online, thank you for attending, watching this session. Hope you learned something new, and I hope to see you all at a future session.